So, good morning, or it is good afternoon. I hope this time we can complete the tutorial. So, okay, first of all, I should show you what we are going to make. Here, we would be making something like this, and we'll be making an animation. Well, getting this part is the most of the tutorial. Animation is like 1 2 minute tutorial. This is the project file, and if I can get it. So over here, this is the project file, and this cube is for volume and other stuff. I'll explain as we progress. So, and the final result looks something like this. We'll be speeding up this animation. I don't like how slow this is, but whatever. I was testing it, so it doesn't matter. So Control L, new, don't save. So this is a new scene. You'll be having a cube, a camera, and a light. Select all and delete. Change to cycle, EV, sorry. Ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections should be ticked. Space reflections are not very important. Then in color management, view transform, it would be set to filmic, set it to standards, and look to high contrast, high or very high, whatever you like. Okay, then we'll add one more thing. We'll also be using software named JS Placement. I'll give you the setup file. I'll give you the setup file. So we'll be using it afterwards. Install it. Plane. We add a plane. Scale it. S and 8. We are scaling it by 8 times. We are scaling it 8 times. Screencast is open. Okay, that much. Now we'll be adding a cube. We added this plane for reference because we don't want this cubes to be out of line, otherwise it won't loop. So then we go into front view and G, Y, and holding control we snap it. What the fuck? Oh sorry, wrong axis. X axis, and we move it here. And holding control is very important because it will snap it to grid, like it is perfectly over here. If I do it without holding control, so I cannot align it. Like you can align it, but I don't like to align that. Then we go over here. First of all, we add an empty. Where is empty? We added an empty. Then we add a array modifier. Then object offset. So select the cube, click Ctrl A, all transforms. Then object offset, relative offset is gone. Then select empty. What the fuck? Okay. Then click the empty, R, Z, 180. Now we have a duplicate. Okay. And then we move the cube on the Z axis, still holding control. Over. Go to front view. One more. Okay. To that height. Again Control A, all transforms. So these both will be snapped. Then we add another array modifier. This time again we take object offset and we select the empty. But this time we will also have a constant offset not in the x direction but in the z direction, being -1, I guess. Also -2, -4. Okay, -4. So we have 4 cubes. Very good. And now we'll parent them to the empty. For parenting we use, if I am able to select the empty, select the object that you want to parent to last. Like I've selected the cube, then I select the empty. What the fuck? Select the cube, then select the empty, Control P, object, keep transform. And now if I move the empty, all the 4 cubes will move along with it. So now if you remember, we scaled the plane 8 times. So we can take this empty, go over to object menu. This one is the object properties, and set the Y location to 8. What the heck? Okay, sorry, that was Y rotation. Y location to 8, and it will snap to the end of it. Now back to the cube, modifier stack, again add an array modifier, and this time we'll use relative offset, but instead of in the x direction, we'll use it in the y direction, or in the negative y direction. I don't like how much space they are, so I'll reduce the distance maybe to 1.5. Oh yeah, that's nice. And now increase it to fit the plane. Okay, that will be it. Now we don't have work for this plane anymore, so we'll delete it. Next, we add another cube. Again scale it by 8, because everything is being scaled in the respect to 8, and half of the cubes are outside, so move it by 7.5. Okay, 7. What the fuck? Okay, let's keep it at 7.5. Okay, keeping it at 7.5 seems to work fine. And now I added this cube for volume, and we'll work on that later, but right now it's getting in the way, so we'll again go to object properties, viewport display, display as wired. Now we can see inside of it. Okay, this is a good time to save the project too. I'll save it as tutorial and enter. Okay, now this is where this program comes in to play. This is what it will look like after opening. Click on these, whatever these are. JS placement classic, use R, and this will be a randomly displayed map. Play with these settings however you like. I already like what it's looking like, or maybe I can play with it. Maybe the default settings are the best. Then click on save height, save wherever you want to save, and then go to JS placement dot grid, click on the box, then it will generate a dot pattern. Save that too, then close that. Now comes the shading part. Shift F3 twice, I guess. What the fuck? Nothing is working today, right? Now new material, look dev mode, And now if you have Node Wrangler installed, which I believe you have, you can click Ctrl T, then this setup will be arranged for you. Then select the cube, press tab, U, and cube projection. What that did was it created a UV map. Let me show you UV editor. So this is a UV map that is created. That means the image we generated from JS placement will be can be used, not will be used, can be made to use. What can I explain that? Can be used to place it. What the fuck, man? I don't know what to say. The image from JS placement will be placed over it, and it will be projected over the cube. That is what it basically means. You don't need to get into the details of it. So which one was it? Select the image that you generated from JS placement. It should look like this. Get out of edit mode, and we don't have work for this anymore. So that is what it should look like. Now you'll be thinking, what is the use for this? This doesn't look good. So that is because we'll be replacing the principal BSDF with a transparent shader, transparent BSDF, and an emission shader. So hold shift and control and right click and drag both the transparent and emission shader. You'll get a mix shader, and connect shader to surface and connect the color to the factor of mix shader. Now no transparency is shown at first because cycle is default to set as opaque. So click on material properties, go under settings, blend mode, set from opaque to alpha blend, and now you can see they are sort of transparent. So now we can add a color ramp to manipulate the color. Basically, go over there, set that to something like orange, this one to yellow, and something like that. Okay. Now to get a better effect, what we can do is we can select the cube, big one that we created, and create a new material for it. Delete the principal BSDS shader and add a principal volume shader. Connect it, and as you can see, it fades the rest of the cubes. We can set the strength to be a bit low, like 0.3. Now it gives an interesting effect, sort of an interesting effect. So that's it for now, for the shader at least. Then select all of them and press M to make a new collection. Call it anything you want, and Shift A, collection instance R, because we called it R, G, and Y. Why we are using instance instead of duplicating simply, you might ask. That is because if we instance it, we don't have to our processor won't have to render it twice. It can just take the first part and instance it, basically. I don't have a word for what instancing can be said. So this should be enough, maybe a little bit more apart, like that. G, Y. At this moment you are basically eyeballing it, because the camera is going to travel only this much, so you don't have to worry about the rest of the part. Like, eyeballing is it good, than more than enough. Speaking about camera, we have to add it, and my camera is, I don't know why it is so disoriented. So go into object properties, rotation XYZ, click on X and drag, hold, click and drag, and click 0. Okay, it will set the camera facing downwards. Then click on X axis and set it to -90. Then as you would remember, that everything is scaled in reference to 8, means everything is times 8. So we can just set the Y location to be 8 meters, and it will snap to the end of the cube. And if we click 0 now, we'll enter the camera view and it will be perfect, which it is not, but it will. So now you might be wondering, what about the dot map that we pulled out of JS placement? So for that, add a plane, rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees, and bring it closer to the camera, like over here. Scale it to fit the camera's view, and go into shader editor. Here either you can add a new material, or what I'd like to do is add the old material to it. Then click on this button, because we added this material to the cube, and now we are adding to it to a different material, the plane. They're both similar, but if we, what can I say about that? They are both same material, but if we try to make changes to one, it will affect both. But if we click this display number, that is 2, it will make a separate material. Like they both are same, but they are instanced, you can say, different instance of a same material in two different places. I know that is not making any sense, but whatever. So now we need to click on this folder icon and select the dot map, dot grid, and it should work like that. At the moment we cannot see anything because a cube volume 1 students. Okay, now it should be a little more visible. So as you can see, we are getting there little bit. What we need to do is, this is a single plane, so it is not giving a very good effect, you can say. So array modifier to a rescue yet again. Relative offset, constant offset, y0 x0, and set it to y. Oh shit, what the heck. Okay, why this is happening is we didn't apply the transformations. Like it spawned over here, spawned you can say, and rotated it 90 degrees. So the x direction became the y direction, you can say, in a sense, and then we scaled it. That is why array modifier is not working, and after applying the transformation it works. So set it to 2.5. Maybe 2.5 is a little bit less. 0.75. मैंने क्या कहा था, डिस्टर्ब मत करना कहा था ना, हैं? रहने दो, जोर से मारूंगा मैं। एक बार मैंने मना किया है तो क्यों करते हो बार बार आप लोग? हाँ, कितनी जोर से धक्का दिया आपने, टूट रहा था वो अंदर को। So let's set it to 2.75 or maybe -3. Okay, now we add 5 of these. Okay, 5 of these. Then we add another array modifier. Again set it to constant offset. Again at y, and it should be around 8, I guess, or 16. -16, sorry. Why -16? Because this side of the cube is 8 meters, so this will be 8 meters again, but we eyeballed it, so it is not perfect. That means it is around 15 something, and as I said, it is okay because the camera won't reach over here. Adding a bit more, this should be fine. Then if you look at the rendered view, this is looking pretty good, but as you can see, it looks very computer generated, in the sense that all of these are very similar to each other. They follow a pattern, like these 4 blocks, then there are these 4 blocks, then there are these 4 blocks. So what we can do is collapse the constant and relative offset, open the object offset and add another empty plane axis, rotate it on x direction by 45 degrees, and click on the plane and object offset empty 1. It will be set as empty 1 because we used empty number, that's 0, which is this one empty, for the cubes. So the next empty will be shown as this empty, and now if we rotate that, what the fuck, okay, sorry, we added it to the wrong array modifier, not this one but the first one. Object offset, object empty, and select the empty, Alt R, that will Alt R, go to the object offset and click that 0. Where is that? Empty, rotation 0. And because we are doing everything in the y direction, so we need to change it in y direction. So now it will be a bit random, like you cannot get a perfect pattern here, you cannot see a perfect pattern. There is a little artifact you can see over here. That is because again the volume is not getting correctly rendered. An easy way to fix that is first of all open your overlays. This is the overlay button. This will hide any lines, you can say, any wires that is set. So we can scale it up to 9. Or a better way to do that will be scaling it over here, selecting all of them, setting it to 9. Now all of them are selected and all of them are joined to, so it should in theory fix that problem, and it won't for some reason. So let's try going up to 10. It's increasing that. 9. That should be good enough. Now if we darken it a bit, 1.25, oh sorry, 0.125, or maybe 2. It should be enough. Now for camera settings, some camera settings that we can do is like we are seeing very less of the cubes and the pattern and more of this black abyss that I don't like. So what we can do is we can increase the focal length, decrease the focal length of the camera to see more of it. Like 25 works best. And also for a better idea of how it will look when rendered, we can set the pass out to be 1. So this is the area that will be rendered. Now we can go back to the cubes and then set the emission strength a bit high, like 3, or maybe 3 will work, and cramping the orange part down. And as for the plane, we can change the color a bit to be dark blue kind of color and a blue kind of color. Okay, and setting the strength to be around 5. So that's the basis of it. And for the animation, what I did was, let me get the timeline. For animation, what I did was I took the camera and moved it from over 8 to -8, like from the start of this cube to the end of this cube. And because we have what you can say instance all these other cubes, it looks similar going up to here. Then the camera snaps back to its first place when it completes up to 250, so it loops. Infinite loop is there. I hope that is making sense, because I don't know what is up with my explanation today. I can't explain shit. So for looping, one more thing is important. As the camera will snap back to the same point as it was in the first frame, so it will create duplicates. Like in the first frame it is at 8 meters in the y direction, and if we set it to -8 on 250th frame, it will make two duplicate frames of first. The fix for that is, I don't know how to explain that. The fix for that is, go to 0th frame, or the frame that you won't be rendering. Then right click, insert keyframes, go to the last frame, set whatever distance you want. In our case it is -8, and again insert keyframes. Now it will loop. Let's let it loop. That jitter was there because we scaled it by 9, if you might remember. We scaled it the cube by 9, if you remember. So we'll have to set it to -8, -9 and +9. Now in theory it should loop, and it will, I hope. Now for the effect that where I rotated the camera and there was a jitter effect, that is the good part. So for that, first of all, let's go to the first 0th frame and keyframe the rotation as well. Then we go to the last frame and set it to 360. It would make a full rotation and get back to the initial position it was, so it again will loop like that. Okay, now for the jitter effect, what I did was I simply Opened up the graph editor, expanded object transform. In X location, press N, you'll get a modifiers tab, this F curve and modifier. Add a noise modifier. It adds the jitter effect, and then you increase the scale by a lot. After my experimentation, I found about 55.5 to be good enough, and the strength to be around 0.5. And now for the looping part, what we need to do is we need to keep in mind that this point where the animation starts, I mean the wave starts, should be equal to where this wave ends. So for that, what we do is we change the offset like around here. Also, if it doesn't work, you can also change the scale a bit to make it fit. I changed it a bit too much. Phase. Okay. Now it is aligned, so it will work like that. And to add a bit of what you can say more depth to it, I just copied this to all of the location except the Y location, because for Y we edit this custom rotation, that is the full flip it is doing. So again 55.5, enter, strength 0.5, and for Euler rotation again noise 55.5, scale 2.5, Y rotation we leave, Z rotation, noise 55.5, strength 0.5, and let's check it a bit. So after adding this much noise, I am sure that it won't loop unless you like perfectly eyeball it, and that is the only way I know, eyeballing it to make it loop. But I rendered a 500 frame animation, so it was more than like 10 seconds, around 10 seconds. So I don't think that you need to loop an animation longer than that. And also it is a very but cheap effect, so you can render it on your CPU, no problem. Now save it and go back to the timeline, and let's do a render. It's not a final render, I remind you. So set the samples and whatnot to very low, because what we are going to do is like mine are rendered is getting rendered at 128, but I found that rendering it at 16 also works, no problem over there. And go to compositing tab, click on use nodes, and control shift click on the render layer nodes. It will give you the viewer node. Then click N, view, fit, click again N, then shift and drag to make a reroute node. Now search for glare node, glare, and what this does is like this adds streaks, and we don't want that much, so we'll add very low. You can experiment with what you want, but I found the value of minus 0.9 to be very good, like good enough to work out for this effect. And then Shift D yet again, this time fog glow, and I set it to something like this. I mean, you get the idea what we are doing, it's the same. Then the next node that we'll be adding is distortion, lens distortion. So in distortion, we'll set it to 0.05, and also the dispersio to 0.05. What it does is this kind of effect. For my render, I ticked fit to, but I think that this effect is better. This one is looking kind of better. It's up to you, whatever you do. So I think I'll go with this one this time. So save it right for now. Go to whatever settings you want to change. Once again, color management, high. Very high contrast will give it very high contrast. What it says. Export settings, the resolution, set the frame rate to 25 because it is 250 second 50 frame animation. Change it from PNG to FFF impact video. Set it to MP4. Encoding, output quality, whatever you want. Like high quality is very decent. And save again. Render animation. It should render pretty quick, like you can see 1 second, and then it will add the composition effect. That will take a time, like it took 5 seconds to add the composition effect. So it's an overnight render for your CPU, but I think the effect looks pretty cool for how low it is using the resources. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching if you did till the end, and bye bye.